Hey, what's going on there, folks? Good evening. It is the Earthmaster back here on this Tuesday night, September 19th, 2023 here along the West Coast. California time is 10:22 p.m. Latest activity shows a 2.1 up into the Gulf of Alaska area. Well, what have we got going on here? Quite a bit of activity stirring up down in New Zealand following a 5.6. Looks like they've sorted out a magnitude there between the USGS and the GeoNet servers. Looks like some other earthquake activity ramping up there as well. New Zealand quakes here. Timothy has a really cool site set up to monitor that activity down here, and you kind of have to zoom in here pretty closely down to the South Island area to see the swarm of activity that's kicking up. I can't get my mouse to want to work appropriately for this website, but there's all that earthquake activity. It's been bouncing around there in the South Island area. It looks like it's really close to some type of, somebody mentioned maybe an older volcano, an ancient volcano out here. But also at the same time, this kind of looks like a creek area. And quite a few earthquakes ramping up there across that region. Let's go over here to the GeoNet servers and show you guys the drums here from New Zealand with that 5.6 and subsequent aftershock activity. Now, I think there's a lot more earthquake activity than even what the Timothy here is showing on their map, and also what the obviously what the USGS is showing. There's a lot more. If you go over here to this specific station right here, there's a bunch. Look at all this aftershock activity following the main quake here. It looks as though it has tapered off slightly over the last couple hours, and it's always possible to see some type of larger scale movement following this type of event. But I think as time kind of goes on, the potential for that happening, well, depending on how much strain's built up out here, right? But either way, I think there's still potential of some larger movement out here across the New Zealand area. It's off the Alpine Fault, a distance. Let's zoom back in here and show you guys the plate boundary across here. There's quite a few other fault systems that run throughout this area of South Island. And let me check out the satellite view here real quick across USGS. This is about 11 kilometers deep or so underneath this area. And again, I'll have to look into this, see if there's any type of, indeed ancient volcano activity out here across this region, as someone had mentioned. But either way, just keep an eye on this area. That was quite a nice signature that showed up there across the graphs. And a lot of the smaller earthquake activity is only showing up here at nearby stations, but it's definitely quite a bit. Right, I would say there's quite a bit of earthquake activity there following that main event. If indeed that's the main event, hopefully it is. Let's see, not a whole lot else going on further up north along the Kermadec Trench. Obviously, we were expecting some movement to take place there in New Zealand, and I still think 5.6 is just probably a moderate magnitude if you really think about the capabilities that are across the plate boundary here for New Zealand. There's a lot more potential for larger magnitude. So in certain areas out there are definitely overdue. So just keep be advised and have an earthquake plan out there. Keep an eye on the current activity that's taking place down there right now. The Kermadec Trench northward into Tonga and Fiji is quiet. It's been quiet here for I don't know, about 3 days now, right? Somewhere around there, I think. So definitely going to get some plate adjustment going on down here across New Zealand. This is the area that really hasn't caught up much in terms of plate adjustment. It may just be taking place right now. Up here across the Japan region, looks like we did see a couple other earthquakes out here into the Japan Trench, actually back building here. Prior, at least here on this map, prior to the subduction zone. That's normally a sign of locked, stressed areas here across that plate boundary. So continue to watch that for some movement potentially. Let's see what we got around the Java Trench here. A couple smaller earthquakes, it looks like, in the mid 4 and upper 4 range in the last 24 hours. The Big Island of Hawaii Not anything major stirring up out here, just a couple smaller earthquakes across Pahala. One earthquake well underneath the Mauna Loa region, 41 kilometers deep, and also up here across the North Island, or northern part of the Big Island. Another deep earthquake, 2.3 at about 38 kilometers deep. Nothing really going on as far as the Kilauea volcano goes. I believe we're still at a standstill. I think when things kick up or decide to kick back up again, we'll see earthquake activity ramping up in a swarm fashion once again. But right now, things are pretty quiet. Across the Aleutian Trench here, one earthquake from this morning, it looks like a 4.4. And typical activity across this area stretches up into the Denali region. A handful of smaller quakes in that area. Into the Pacific Northwest, Mount St. Helens continuing to show earthquake activity. Looks like about 6 earthquakes each day, but I think there's a little bit more than that. Let me show you guys here real quick what I mean. Let's go up here to Mount St. Helens, and then we'll check out the seismograph stations here across the region. This is one I normally check, and there's 6 earthquakes. I see the ones that I believe these are the ones that they're stating. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 maybe, but it looks like there's a lot. It looks like there's a little bit more here across the area of Mount St. Helens as far as earthquake activity goes, but I'm not in control of putting the earthquakes up on the USGS catalog map, but just my observation here, it looks like there's quite a bit more than 6 earthquakes being reported. Mount Rainier having a little bit of activity up here as well. Let's go check that out. Let's see what we got there for the Mount Rainier area. Haven't really paid too much attention to that area up there. Occasionally they do get some swarms. There we go, it's all over the place. This station, or this area, has quite a bit of seismograph stations out here, and quite a few of them do work, and quite a few don't work. So, but we're going to see what we can come up with here as far as the local seismograph station. That one's not working, wouldn't you know? How about this one? That's a GPS displacement. I'm trying to get this little station right there. This one's working. Looks pretty good. As far as earthquake activity goes, they said there's a handful. It could be some of these. These little spikes right here almost look like seismograph earthquake readings, but it's hard to say. If it's super windy up there at that volcano, that could give signs such as this that's taken place. But there's a couple of the smaller earthquakes right there as well. But a lot of times we'll see that wind event pick up these little very thin spikes. But the earthquake activity looks more like this here, and maybe a couple of these up here. So we'll just continue to watch that and report back on any changes. The only thing I don't see is any gas emissions up here. I don't think this one's working, is it? This image is from 2022, October 1st, 2022. So a little bit older imagery, I would say, right? I don't see any gas emission monitoring stations out here, which would be beneficial, I think, for monitoring volcanoes, right? There's thermometer or temperature gauges over here not working. Anyway, all right, let's go ahead and move on. Maybe one day they'll get those fixed. Maybe they won't. California, a little bit of activity across the Eureka region. This one coming in earlier this evening. 2.9 outside of Arcata. 15 kilometers deep into the potentially the Cascadia subduction zone here. We did have another activity event, or a little 2.7 off the coast here into the Gorda Plate. That was coming in earlier this morning. It looks like about 9 o'clock or so. Let's check out the tremor map here and see what we have for the Cascadia tremor. A pretty big drop down here, 19 epicenters of tremor. Compared to the last couple days, we've seen some variable numbers there, from about 2 to 350 tremors each day, which ain't a huge uptick, but it's a slight uptick compared to the day anyway. 19 epicenters of tremor. right around the Vancouver Island range. And this is the area that really hasn't filled in. If you look at the last week here of activity, you can see most of the Cascadia here seeing some slippage, so to speak, as far as the trimmer goes. And this little area right here is our newer stuff. So it looks like maybe kind of working its way up northward slightly across the northern edge of the Cascadia subduction zone. All right, see what we got for the rest of California. This movement here across the Patterson area of California calmed down nicely. A little uptick, and then all of a sudden just mellowed out. But it was definitely some elevated activity out here across California in the last couple days. Still seeing some movement here across the creeping segment of the San Andreas Fault. The latest one at 1.5 near Parkfield. And further down south, a handful of earthquakes as well. Let's see what we got for magnitudes. Got one 3.1 earlier this morning near Fontana. That's it's hard to say which fault system that's on, but it's off of the San Andreas Fault a ways, maybe close to the this little intersection here between many different faults. California is just riddled with spiderweb fault systems all over the place. No major movement though going on across the San Andreas Fault for now. No major swarming. Did see slight uptick out in Nevada with a 3.2 earlier this evening outside of the Tonopah region. And a handful of smaller quakes scattered out and about the desert. Yellowstone National Park, I don't think we have too much going on, but let's double check, see what we got here. Maple Creek area. There we go. I believe those are going to be some thunderstorms a few hours ago, right? Anyone could say, man, that looks like magma movement, but I just want to double check. If there's no thunderstorms, then I could look at other stuff that may be pulling that up, that seismograph reading. But I want to be factual in my data reporting out here. I've always been about that. So let's look over the past, I think it's been about 6 hours, 22, somewhere around 6 hours. Let's see what we got here. And most of this reading looks like it's over here around this area. There's a handful, looks like a handful. See those thunderstorms, those bolts that popped up here? Looks like there was a handful of storms that moved through the area and, of course, have since dissipated. But a lot of times we will see that activity stir up out here. Not so much down south, it looks like. But these thunderstorms do pop up. Some readings across the seismograph stations. All right, anything else going on here across the globe, across the world? Let's take a look here. Of course, the movement there in Poland earlier, shaking things up out there. That was a 4-pointer, 4.6 to be exact, by the USGS. That was earlier this morning, about 9 o'clock local time here, West Coast time. Atlantic Ocean, pretty quiet, pretty clear. Again, we'll keep an eye on the New Zealand area. There's a couple different zones out there, obviously across the major plate boundary. And you got the Hikurangi subduction zone off the east coast of North Island. That's another sleeping giant. That's always something to worry about out here, but it's best just to be prepared for any events that may take place here in the future. Let's see, space weather activity, I think a lot calmer tonight than it was last night. Had some G3 storming conditions kick up here. Auroras were seen quite nicely down into a lot of the northern tier states. Right now things are very minimal. Only slight possibilities of auroras up there across the extreme higher latitude into Canada. We got quite a few sunspots on the sun, and some of these are looking dynamic, fairly dynamic, but also at the same time we got a blackout here of data from the moon basically eclipsing the sun, so that imagery is being blocked out right now. But this one that was put up here a little bit ago does show quite a few sunspots out here. Let's go ahead and check out the latest magnetogram image that will show us the complexity of the sunspots. Look at this area getting all warped up, and this is a little interesting here to watch this whole region grow like this dynamically. I think this one may be a little bit of trouble here in the coming days. It is going to be facing directly with Earth, so we'll continue to monitor these quite dynamic areas within the sunspot region. A couple other ones here as well, looking to advance, but they are moving off towards the western limb of the sun. And this little baby sunspot here grew pretty drastically in the last 24 hours, but it's got a separation of the core. We'll continue to watch that, though, see if that pops anything off. But I think right now, main threat's going to be this area right here, and that's going to be a couple different sunspots, 3435 and 3438. Almost looks like one giant sunspot, but these are fairly complex. 3435, 3438. That's going to be the beta delta, beta gamma class here. Those two sunspots noteworthy to watch. We did see a little bit of flaring here in the last 24 hours, including an M flare, an M4.0 it looks like. That is from 3435, one of those complex sunspots that we're just discussing. Here's a look at it earlier. Beautiful bright feature coming off the western area of the sunspot region. Or eastern, right? I still don't get that, how they, this is the eastern limb, the western limb. I don't know. I just go along with the flow. All right, nothing major coming up here in the next couple days. We don't really have any major CMEs headed our direction, but you never know with 3435 and this other sunspot that's, going to be staring us down. We'll watch out for some CME activity in the coming days if we can get a couple nice solar flares popping off. Storm Prediction Center did see a little bit of activity out there across Texas and Oklahoma today. I think the large hail threat was about the only main threats out there. As far as the storm reports go throughout the day today, let's see. Looks like green's going to be some hail reports, some large hail. And let's see, blue looks like some wind reports. No tornado reports. There was only that 2% chance, but still, it's always good to put out some type of warning when there's a little bit of tornado potential. All right, let's check out the tropics and see what we got here for the Atlantic. Got any major storms out here brewing up? Something we have to worry about? Right now, most of the activity that is brewing up is getting caught back up north and heading off towards the Ireland area. That area gets so much rain. Look at that. That is crazy. There's just a massive amount of rain. No wonder it's so green all the time over there. Eventually, I want to get over there and check that area out. Okay. Let's see what we got. Looks like some type of tropical development wanting to form here off the east coast. Now, let me bring up the National Hurricane Center and see what we have brewing. Is this the most recent? Looks like it. These are active storms. On this one model here, this GFS model shows something developing here, so it's not quite in the active stage. This is around about 48 hours, 2 days or so. It looks like some type of tropical development wanting to form off the Carolina coast. It doesn't have much time though to form, but it could spell a little bit of trouble there with the rainfall and some wind. We'll have to watch that as it develops. And let's see what else. We got this one entering into the Gulf of Mexico. Looks like it wants to anyway. That will be one to watch if that does take place. That hits like the just the east of the New Orleans area. That could be a little troublemaker if that is indeed, the accurate forecast. But again, this is ways out into the first week of October, so this all could change. But this area definitely worth noting because that's only about 48 to 72 hours away, pretty close. So we'll continue to check back on that, see if it's be updated in the National Hurricane Center models tomorrow. As far as California goes, let's see what we got going on out here. We do have some much cooler weather. It looks like maybe, ooh, I like the looks of that. A lot of rain coming into the coast range here of Northern California on the September 26th time period. We'll have to watch that pretty closely, but it looks like West Coast is going to be nice and cool. The GEPS segment here, I'll show that cooling trend taking place coming up later this week into Thursday and Friday, bringing some nice and cool weather out here across California. And that's going to be reinforced by another trough off the Pacific Northwest coast into next week. And it looks like it wants to deepen pretty nicely there. Feel bad for these folks up into Canada and this darker orange region. That's some heat building up there for those folks. And we'll continue to watch that, see how it plays out. These are some long trend models. But definitely looks like some cooler weather in the California and generally almost the entire West Coast out here. In the forecast, there's some nice cooler weather. All right, folks, stay safe out there. Again, I do have New Zealand here on the chart as far as seismograph activity goes. So if anything big does pop off there, of course, we'll probably know about it. But for now, just stay safe out there and make sure you have an earthquake plan. Things, the earthquakes can pop off anywhere. Anywhere around the plate boundary, anywhere off the plate boundary. If you really think about it, intraplate earthquakes do happen not as often, but they do kick up on occasion. New Madrid seismic zone is a prime example. There's many other different areas around the globe that are, hazard zones for earthquake activity. Just be prepared. All right, folks, I am out of here. It's been a long day. I'm ready to call it a night. Past my bedtime. Have a good one. We'll catch you guys back here early in the morning for the Wednesday update. Take care, folks.